In recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor, but nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Okay, we thought he would say that, and he did, but that was about it. The president finally addressing the nation 3 days after ending his re-election bid on Sunday as the White House defends his fitness to finish the term.
So today, the president believes that he is fully capable of serving in the office that he currently has now and for the next 4.5 years if he wanted to.
Absolutely.
Who ordered White House officials to cover up a declining president?
It is not a cover-up. I know that is the narrative that you all want. It is not.
Okay. Here with reaction, former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. Newt, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So there was no cover-up. Behind the scenes, he's still sharp as a tack.
Look, the key part of the speech that you just played is purely and simply a lie. He didn't decide to get out for the good of the country. He had Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama orchestrating an all-out attack that would have destroyed him in the next week or two. This is a coup d'etat. We've never seen anything like it in American history. This is a group of bosses who decided that 14,500,000 Democrats in the primaries were wrong, that Joe Biden was no longer worthy of their approval, and that they were going to impose a San Francisco radical, which for Pelosi makes sense. To say anything else is just not to be honest with the American people. So Biden's farewell address was a dishonest one. It's not true what he said. It wasn't some grand decision. He got out because he knew that Pelosi and Obama in the next week or so were going to beat his brains out. And so this literally was like Venezuela or Russia or somewhere else. This was a coup against a freely elected sitting president on behalf of replacing him with a San Francisco radical. And the coup was led by a San Francisco radical in Pelosi.
Yeah. You know, Newt, for those who watched the channel yesterday, you saw the President of the United States, and you saw him at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Earlier in the day, though, you saw Benjamin Netanyahu from the well of the House of Representatives speaking to a joint session of Congress who were all there. And, you know, when you compare and contrast Netanyahu's cognitive behavior and his physicality with Biden's, you just think, what happened to Joe Biden? That guy who gave that speech last night is not the guy even who was sworn in 3.5 years ago.
Well, I think that became just frighteningly obvious in the debate with Trump. Callista and I were watching it, and we thought maybe Biden would make 1 or 2 or 3 mistakes. But from the moment we tuned in, that very opening answer, it was clear you were dealing with somebody who cognitively had declined to a point where they were incoherent and they were incompetent. And I think if you had a split screen and you looked at the directness, the toughness, and also the thoughtfulness of Netanyahu, and then you looked at the vapidity and the lack of energy of Biden, it's just unbelievable, the gap in the two.
Indeed. All right. Newt, thank you very much for joining us live on this Thursday.
Sure. Glad to be with you.
All right. I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.